All right, I guess that's me. Hello, guess I'll call to order the Tuesday, February 14th session of the Seaside Environmental Commission. And I guess, do we still do a roll call even if we're here in person?
Yes, we will do a roll call. Commissioner Gottlieb. Here. Commissioner Overmeyer. Here. Commissioner Prieto Cervantes.
Here.
Commissioner Murphy. Here. Commissioner Mole.
Here.
We have established a quorum.
All right, well, thank you for everyone who is participating from the public today, as well as the commissioners for attending on February 14th, which is of course not a federal holiday, but can be busy on social calendars. So extra thanks for all of you who come out today. And since we have established a quorum, I believe we'll be reviewing the agenda. If there's any items that have arisen after the 72-hour posting deadline, this is the opportunity to have a vote to say they would like to add them to the agenda. Does anybody have anything to add that was not posted on the agenda? Okay, seeing nothing, we'll move on to our next item, which is the public comment. If any members of the public wish to address the commission on matters within the jurisdiction of the city of Seaside, but not on the agenda, please come up and do so.
Good evening. My name is Lacey Rock, and I would like just to again thank this committee, but as you know, or some of you may know, I worked really hard with many members of the committee on the single-use plastics policy. And for the last couple of years, the city has given about $40,000 to support the outreach and engagement on this item. It's been really profound and impactful. So it has a bilingual Spanish, English outreach coordinator that goes to businesses and talks with them one-on-one and helps them through the process of transitioning from single-use items, not just to compostable ware, which is often more expensive, but to reusable ware, which ultimately saves the business money and reduces the environmental impact. I would hope that this committee again requests the funding for the continued outreach efforts for this program. I know the budget cycle for the city will probably be coming up in the next month or so. So I really strongly encourage you as a committee to advocate for the continuation of those funds. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's a good reminder, since some of those things were taken care of behind the scenes, but it's good, always good to support the work that we've been putting in. Any other members of the public wishing to speak at this time about matters not on the agenda?
At this time, any Zoom participants, please raise your hand if you're interested in participating in public comment.
All right. Looks like we've given the appropriate period of awkward silence so anyone can feel emboldened to step up and speak on the microphone. So we're going to move on to the approval of minutes. We have our most recent meeting was December 13th, 2022. Our January meeting was canceled due to the concerns of the storm at the time. Do we have anyone who would like to motion to approve our minutes?
I move to approve the minutes from December 13th.
A second. All right, that's a motion and a second. Do we need to vote on it? No?
You need to vote, but we don't need to do roll call.
Oh, okay, yes. All right, I'll vote to approve the meeting minutes for December 13th.
Aye.
Yeah, can we just get you to say all in favor?
All in favor? All right.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thanks. I'm a little bit out of practice of how to do this in person. Okay, well, moving on to our business items. We have a few items today. The first one is a presentation by Catherine Crockett of Sustainable Seaside regarding the 12th Annual Earth Day celebration. This has been approved, I understand it, to take place at City Hall on April 23rd from 1 to 4 p.m.
Yes, hi, good evening. My name's Catherine Crockett. I'm the chair of Sustainable Seaside, and we're again organizing an Earth Day event Sunday, April 23rd on the City Hall lawn. And we're so pleased that the city has agreed to co-sponsor and waive fees and provide some equipment. I have draft flyers here, which I will give to the clerk. English and Spanish. So this event is, it's a community celebration. It's a free family event just to raise awareness about how we can all preserve and protect our planet and through local actions. We'll have performances, Palenque arts, information tables, demonstrations, speakers, and just to highlight the ways that individuals and organizations can work to become more sustainable. So I'm here to invite the Environmental Commission to host an information booth or lead a community event. It could be in advance or anytime during the Earth Day period, which is actually, Earth Day is April 22nd. But just to promote sustainability or some project that the city is involved in, the Environmental Committee is working on. So we would also like you to co-sponsor. You co-sponsored last year, and you'll see your logo at the bottom there, and that's just a draft. And if you decide to do that, then we would be happy to have you join us. Other sponsors are Ecology Action, and they'll be organizing an electric vehicle test drive. They're calling it Test Drive, Ride, and Display Fair, and that's in the parking lot. And I'm working with the Transportation Equity Coordinators to put that on, and their focus is getting low-income people in electric vehicles, and that's to comply with AB 32, getting people out of fossil fuel vehicles. So anyway, we've got a planning meeting every Friday, starting this Friday at 3 o'clock, organizing meetings, and I've sent that to Beth Rocha and also to someone else. Anyway, and so you're invited to come and participate in that 3 o'clock every other Friday. So do you have any questions or?
Can you please clarify the request to co-sponsor?
The co-sponsor is, our expenses are practically nothing now that the city is sponsoring, waiving the fees. And so we look at our co-sponsors like Friends of Seaside Parks. They're people groups that we've partnered with throughout the year in the parks, different projects, plastics. And so it's, to us, it's more of a show of partnership and solidarity and in our mission of sustainability without any real requirements to provide any funds or anything like that.
Okay, so there's no specific request for funding or for a particular time commitment.
Correct.
Thank you.
Excellent. That was just what I was going to ask too. I'm curious if this makes a lot of sense. We've been participants previously. It's right here on the city lawn. I think probably an appropriate follow-up question, which could be handled at one of those planning meetings, but can also be discussed here publicly. Do you know what kind of booths are going to be there? What's the most need for us to cover? Because for example, we could perhaps, answer people's questions about things that are happening in the city of Seaside, like recent changes with putting compost in yard waste bins. But if Green Waste or the Regional Waste Management District are tabling, then we don't need to cover that. And we've done activities and crafts for kids previously using upcycled items. But if we've got 5 booths with kids crafts, we don't need to do that. So I suppose it would be good to coordinate who is doing what.
Okay, ask Melissa Broadston with the it used to be Fort Ord Cleanup. Now she's working for the city.
Mhm.
She says she's hosting a table beside the Fort Ord Cleanup group, and she'll be handing out the kitchen waste pails
Nice.
and encouraging people to keep their food waste out of the landfill. And that's a focus of ours too. And I think green waste will be there, and possibly I've invited about 20 different organizations at this point, and it's still early, and I haven't heard from all of them. I haven't gotten confirmation, but I can imagine there will be at least 3 groups that will be promoting keeping food out of the landfill, keeping food waste.
Great.
Seems as though there would be a fair amount of wait, is still to be seen, coordination to be done. Would any commissioners be able to attend some or several of the planning meetings that were mentioned on Fridays at 3 p.m.? Is that correct?
Mhm.
These are Zoom meetings or? in
There's
person?
Zoom. Mhm.
I should be able to attend some myself.
And it's not mandatory to be at everyone. It's just if you want to get updates and have concerns, questions, share
Um,
information.
My request to you, Kristen, would be if you were able to attend some of the meetings, could you follow up communication with the commission through our liaison about any updates needed in terms of if commissioners were interested in a particular activity or particular educational outreach element that relates to the commission to share based on what is developing in those planning meetings? So that we can be appraised between, because after a month, we're
Yeah.
halfway towards the event already.
Got it. Yeah. Through which liaison?
Through our staff liaison. for the
Okay, through our
commission.
staff liaison. Yes, absolutely. Just wanted to make sure it wasn't a different liaison. I was gonna guess wrong. So yes, I'd be happy to, for all the meetings I'm able to attend, give an update through our staff liaison to get out to the rest of the commission.
I would like to make a motion that the Environmental Commission co-sponsor the Sustainable Seaside Earth Day event.
I'd
on
second
April
that.
23rd.
I would second that motion. All those in favor say aye. Oh, sorry.
Out of order.
So the item was just a presentation.
Oh,
That will have to come at a later meeting, so we can add it. Yeah, had we thought about that, we could have done it in the beginning, but we're past that point now.
listed as a business item?
Is it?
Yeah, the business item says the word presentation, but it is a business item. So,
Yeah, good point. We can do it and then we can check on it. And if we have to do it again, we'll do it again.
Yeah,
Yeah, some other commissions have it set up where they actually have presentations. I think I was a bit confused when I saw ours as I had to put them under business item. Thanks for calling that out, Michelle. All right.
thanks. Well, we can certainly vote again next meeting, but necessary, yep, if necessary. All those in favor then can say aye. 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 Okay, sounds like the motion passes unanimously. I'll attend hopefully many of those meetings with Sustainable Seaside and then send notice through Beth about updates to what's going on.
Can I add another comment? So last year, Kristen and I sat at the table at the event and I thought it was successful. There were a lot of people that attended. Did notice that we didn't have good branding for Environmental Commission, where some of the other commissions had flags or tablecloths with the name. So that might be something for us to consider. I don't know if we can do that tonight. It's not on the agenda. But we do have budget for this commission. That might be a nice thing to do.
And actually, the point about noticing the other commission tables at the event might give us an in. Is it possible, Beth, for you to see like what do the other commissions do for their official stuff? Because I know things involving the like city logo is.
Yeah, I can ask. I would imagine that Parks is just more has those things in stock than any other commission, but I do also recall last year that being an item where it was being looked into as to whether or not we could purchase things. So I don't know where that went, but I'll see if maybe we can recycle something or what we have to do to get something that's very likely going to have to come for our budget and that we vote on it. But then that kicks it back again to where we were last year in researching what we actually wanted. And I don't recall where we ended up with that.
Yeah, if I recall from last year, we ran out of time in terms of needing to find out what permission we needed to put the city logo on things or get things approved, using local vendors. So maybe if we have a little bit more time again this year, but it'll be great to see if there's a starting place we can use based on what the other commissions did. But yes, thanks for bringing that up. Any other comments on this issue or comments from members of the public on this business item? Any other comments from commissioners? All right. Moving on, our next agenda item is a presentation by Lacey Rock regarding the upcoming Parks Master Plan and specifically how that is related to vacant parcels in the city's core.
You have my presentation? Okay. Can I progress with this or should I? I can try, see if it works. Okay. Nope. Well, hold on, let me turn it on. Is it plugged in? Oh yeah. Okay, hello again. So before I begin this presentation, I just want to give some context as to how I got to this point and wanting to make this request. The park work days that happen every Saturday are an amazing opportunity to be involved in our community. And I try to go to as many of them as I can. And one thing I noticed within the last year, probably, and it's just been sticking in the back of my head, is that every time I go to them, I'm driving up the hill or I'm walking up the hill. And I'm going to an area that's frankly a little bit nicer than the part of town that I live in. It's mostly single family houses. That seems to be a little bit more wealth in that area. And so I did a little bit of research and a lot of that research I'll share with you. So one thing that we know about parks and open space as members of this committee, you'll be very aware that parks really promote physical and mental well-being. They promote economic benefits, and single family residential neighborhoods tend to be closer to these parks, right? So you'll find more green space in wealthier areas of community, whether that's seaside or anywhere pretty much in our country. There's long history for the reasons that that is the case. And what we know about seaside parks is that every park in Seaside is in a single family residential zoned neighborhood. And the central areas of Seaside, as you'll see on the map that I'm about to show, are the most densely populated, have the busiest roads and the least access to green or open space. As I mentioned, parks create community. And so this has an impact in these areas. In addition, multifamily units that are currently planned, like the Ascent project on Broadway, don't have any park space or any sort of open space built into that project scope. So we know that the areas that are dense will get more dense and really sort of exacerbate the existing issue. So this is sort of a zoomed out picture. The next few slides will zoom in a little bit closer, but this red, so the red box is sort of the area that I focused on, but if you're looking at this, all these green areas, a lot of these are the parks that we work in up in this yellow sort of part. But you know, they're all sort of zoned yellow, which I think is single family housing. But yet I live down in here and there are a lot more apartments and multifamily dwellings than there are as I progress sort of up the hill. And so this is a zoomed in area. This is the area I focused on because this is the area that I walk every day. This is the part I'm most familiar with. Just because I'm focusing on this area in the red line doesn't mean that there are not issues outside of that red line, or there aren't opportunities for park space outside of that red line. But again, you can see all of the green parts are up in the upper part of Seaside. There's nothing when you get a little bit lower. There's nothing in that green or red area. This is just for your context. It sort of shows the different designations. So this is a little bit of additional research I did. I can't remember the website that I found it on, but it sort of pulled different demographic and citizen related information for pretty much anywhere in the US. This is just household size. So the red areas are 5 people per household or more, and then it goes down from there. So orange, I think is like 2 or 3, and then it sort of just keeps decreasing. So you can see we're looking at the same, general area or polygon, and it's also very dense. So I took a walk around my neighborhood. My house, just if you're curious, I think is right, I don't know where Elm is. Where's Broadway? It's right here. So this is an area that I walk to quite often, or walk around quite often. And I took some pictures, which you'll see in the next few slides, that I think show a couple of opportunities. This is 1130 Broadway. If you're traveling up Broadway, this is the space that will be just across from the Ascent project. So if you're, there's like a county health services building just north of this, or I'm sorry, just west of this. And then east is a white sort of mixed use. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Sort of near La Preciosa. And this is right across the street from La Preciosa. And it's across the street on San Lucas from where the Ascent project will be. And you can see even in this picture, I mean, these are multifamily units. And you can't see, there's another one right across the street from this that will be behind Ascent. I walk these every day. There's not a curb. There is parking that sort of parks, you park in, and there's bikes with trikes that are around the cars. There's balls, there's baseball bats. There's clearly signs that there are children that live there. And the space that they have to play is a parking lot, basically. And yet there's these open spaces a stone's throw away. This is the location of Terrace and Sonoma. A lot of y'all will probably notice this beautiful landmark on the top of the hill. It was sarcasm, Beth. One of the challenges with this particular space is that it'd be a lot harder from an accessibility perspective. It's a pretty steep slope, but it is a beautiful part of the city. And to open up an area like this that has some of the best views, I would say, on the peninsula would be an incredible gift to our community. And then thinking a little bit outside the box, there's a lot of alleyways in this part of town. I know this isn't always possible in every alleyway, but this gives an example of an alleyway that you could transform into a park or open space that allows people who live on either side of this alleyway to use it as a space for play or garden. This is the last one I'll show. This is actually like sort of kitty corner from my backyard. It's clearly private. I think they're all privately owned, but this is just another open space within the area. They store vehicles there. So these are some of the questions that I've asked. I've got some answers on, but I'm still looking for some information. But the only park space that's planned in the general plan appears to be in Seaside East, which is across from General Jim Moore, again, further up the hill. And so it doesn't address any of the parks that might be needed in other areas of the city. I will also say that I know that there's a park master plan that's being proposed and developed and probably an RFP out at this point, or maybe responses. That's great. We can plan for increasing park space as I've laid out here as part of that plan. I don't want to wait for that plan to be done to start taking or trying to move this forward, because a plan can take 3 years until it's done and approved by council. And then you have to get, the individual project approved and keep moving. It's ridiculous if we're going to wait until the parks plan is done. So I'm asking, and I'll be more clear about my request in a minute, but I don't want to wait for that. I think it can complement it, but it shouldn't wait. And then I'm also curious, the city has purchased property in the past. The most recent one that I'm familiar with, but again, I haven't gotten confirmation on how much was spent, is the space by Deja Blue, kind of at the intersection right there. It was purchased and turned into a parking lot. So if we can purchase land and turn it into a parking lot, I surely hope we can purchase land and turn it into a park. Again, these are just spaces that I'm familiar with. It's not an exhaustive list. So if there are additional areas that you all are aware of or that you would recommend for park space, I'm all for it. So my request is that the city identify 3 locations for additional parks, and it could be a variety of sort of park-like options. And then that a statement of support that the city review and explore opportunities to increase park space in the areas identified. This includes, sorry for the typo there, budget allocations in the 2023 budget. So I look to staff or others with better knowledge of that process to know what that request might look like, but to have that come from this committee and hopefully other committees as well would be really beneficial. And that's my last slide. The only other thing that I'll add is I have given this presentation to the Parks and Rec Commission in December, and I also plan on presenting it to the Neighborhood Improvement Commission as well as Friends of Seaside Parks. And I do hope, and I would invite any members of this committee to join me to meet with staff or other elected officials to share this idea / proposal as well. And with that, I'll open it up for questions or comments.
I have a question. I'm not sure if it's for you or for city staff. With alleys, in general, those are easements? Aren't they already city owned? Does anyone, who owns an alley? Aren't they already?
Most of them are city owned, not all of them are easements. And then when I'm up here, just to address a couple of things in the presentation, clarifying. So the Ascent project was mentioned.
Mhm.
It's a multifamily development. Every multifamily development has required private space for every unit. And you might see that in the form of a balcony, as well as like storage that might be in a carport, and also open space requirements, but that doesn't mean that it's public open space. But the Ascent project, I believe, is 7 buildings of around 116 units. And in between each of those buildings, there is open space that will be landscaped. And then a comment was made about the general plan and Seaside East being the only area in the general plan that will have park space. As you might recall, the city did a conceptual plan with DPZ planning firm. And the general plan, though, will not be including Seaside East as a specific plan. So as of the draft general plan now, there aren't any plan shown for Seaside East, it's referred to as future specific plan area. Because if we, again, waited until that process was done, we would be pushing our general plan out another few years on top of the time that's already passed. So I just wanted to clarify those 2 points.
Thank you.
Thanks, Beth.
Thank you very much for a compelling and well-organized presentation. I really appreciate your approach, presenting to multiple interested parties and your organization and the very clear request. And I guess I would just indicate to my fellow commissioners that I'm interested in our commission at the very least, beginning with a review and identification as requested of potential park locations, probably to include other areas in Seaside which might be dense that were not scoped in the presentation that was offered, and follow up on the item at our next meeting.
That sounds like an excellent next step. I know, the map, like certainly Lacey, you recognized your own area that you were focusing wasn't exhaustive, but the lower sections of Seaside to the north also, you know, the closer you get to Fremont, you know, you don't have extra space for those parks. So that increasing that scope might be good. Is it an appropriate ask, Beth, to double check? I seem to recall the city having purchased other space and turning it into recreational areas recently, but the last few years have been a blur, so it might not have been recently. Like there was a spot that was the city purchased, and I think they were talking about like half court basketball fitting in there and such. So
What's your request?
my request is just like, can we grab a couple precedents of empty lots or disused spaces, which is my understanding was this previous instance I'm remembering, where a lot was not well cared for and was purchased and used for recreation space.
Yeah, the parcel that's coming to mind is the basketball court on Sonoma. I don't recall the details of that, but I think that definitely has been more than 2 years ago. And since then, there have been purchases of properties in the West Broadway Urban Village specific plan to kind of capture properties while we can to hopefully reach those long-term plan goals in time. But acquiring a property other than that, nothing comes to mind besides the basketball court. And again, I think that may have been, and I may be completely off, but I think it was with the Salvation Army, who I think has a property nearby there, and some agreement that the city worked out. Whether or not we own it, that's what I would have to look into. But I don't really think that sets a precedent for this,
Oh,
especially if we don't own it, but that would be the only one that would come to mind. If you want more details on that, I can look into specifics if you want.
if that's possible, it just seems helpful to have a precedent to be like, hey, like this, we could try this.
Sure.
I did email the city clerk, and I prompted her again this evening, requesting any purchases that the city has done in regards to economic development, because there's a link between park space and economic development. And I haven't heard back yet. So when I get that, I will share it with you. I don't know if that's the precedent that you're looking for, but it does show an example of city, sort of willingness to invest money in economic development by purchasing property.
And, oh, sorry, go ahead. I was gonna say-
Yeah, I think I agree that we can definitely add this to our next meeting and how we want to proceed forward. I'm curious, I guess I have a couple, would love to explore within those conversations is community engagement and how we might be able to engage the community, the surrounding community, and
Yeah.
like mentioning, that there's obviously children in that space, like what would they like to see in that
Yep.
open space? If we were able to do something like that. I'm curious about coastal access and what parts of Seaside have coastal access and how we may be able to incorporate a little bit of that and the connection to the ocean. And then just green infrastructure and, water retention and kind of those types of things within the parks.
Mhm.
I think are just kind of some things that excite me and I'm curious about.
Mhm. Yeah, I was thinking about the first topic you brought up on my way down here. It's been in the back of my mind too. It's, I have plenty of neighbors and I chat with them from time to time, but I haven't brought this up, and just that my assumptions aren't the only needs, right? What I assume the community needs could be very different from what the actual thoughts and needs are from people. So fully agree and would be happy to help with any sort of outreach effort.
Yeah, and I guess just like what kind of ways can we marry a lot of these different things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And meet everybody's needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have some comments too. Thank you for bringing this to us, Lacey. I like the idea of exploring the underutilized alleyways. As far as identifying 3 locations, you listed other commissions that you had presented at. I don't want to duplicate efforts because everybody's time is limited. Could we coordinate with those other commissions if they're being asked to do the same thing?
Possibly, I think what would probably be easiest would be drafting a statement of support or a resolution of support, whatever it officially needs to be called. And that could be signed by all of the commissions, right? Or if they chose to, they could take the draft and tweak it and submit their own. So there could be one with different groups signed, or there could be 4 that are slightly, catered to their specific perspective. Like the Environmental Commission might have a little bit of a different perspective than Parks and Rec, for example. So my preference would be to just have one and put everything that would meet the needs of all the different commissions into one, and then it could be signed by all, but I don't know how the others would want to present.
And then what did you have in mind for budget allocation? Because budget is like starting right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would look to staff for help. I think, some sort of initial like money for review or like the first step, right? Like we can't really go out and say, we want $2 million to purchase this land because we haven't really done the due diligence. So I'd have to maybe talk with staff or with others to say, okay, what might be a reasonable first step? Some sort of study that looks at a broader scope than what I looked at. Something that, estimates what could be done in the different spaces without going into an unnecessary level of detail, right? There might, for example, the one with the steep slope on Terrace, that might not be the best place for a playground because it's harder to access, it's harder to lay out. But the one across from La Preciosa might be a great space for a playground. So just sort of a rough idea of what could be used in the different spaces that are identified. And then maybe an idea of what the cost would be if we were to purchase and create a park. Some sort of an estimate so that we know next budget year or whenever we could to ask for that $1 million or whatever that bigger lump sum might be to actually make it happen. So my gut says some sort of initial research or study or evaluation. But again, Beth might know better than me.
It seems like a research or study or evaluation might be combined with what Mariana was saying about what are the community needs. I mean, if you're in multifamily housing, maybe community needs are like places that you can host a party so you can have lots of people in that space because you don't have that where you live. Barbecue, something to keep the small children from running into the busy Broadway street. So yeah, I feel like the first step probably is going to involve some outreach as well as just
yeah.
And I think just like to expand on that as well, not just the community needs, but how can they get involved? I've seen a lot of great projects in different spaces where community gets involved, especially like the neighborhood area,
Mhm.
and they come together, they say, oh, we want an art project here. And all the kids make an art project that is then put in the park along with, some plant restoration.
Mhm.
And so I think just kind of also marrying that a little bit of how can community be a little bit more involved and even take the lead
Right,
in that space.
yeah. I had a thought right before this and now I lost it. Oh, interaction with other projects. So like two of the sites that I shared were located along Broadway. And Broadway is planning for a significant redesign Upper Broadway. So if there's a roundabout that goes in on Broadway and San Lucas, how can maybe we find some sort of synergy between that project and the space across from La Preciosa, right? So that if they're putting in a roundabout and adding sidewalks or bioswales, how will that impact potential park space? Or can we do that so that it's supportive of knowing that that's going to be a future park space?
Well, sounds like the next step is perhaps coming up with a memos of support.
I can try to draft something if
Be
that's helpful.
That would be very welcome. Thank you for offering. That would have been my request. Something for us to consider and edit.
Yes.
I'm imagining something on the shorter side, like 1 to 2 pages.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay,
Thank you again.
thank you.
Okay. Any other public comments on this agenda item? All right, seeing no one in person or on Zoom, we'll move on to the next item of our agenda. This is a discussion of upcoming and approved state bills related to the scope of the Environmental Commission.
I had asked for this to show up on our agenda each time we meet. And we did just have a city council member in here, just left. I wanted to just give an update. So bills are still being introduced. Legislators have until Friday to introduce for the current session. So there's not a whole lot to talk about right now. There are a couple that have come on my radar. So last week, SB 393 was introduced, and this is a proposed bill that would require a plaintiff or petitioner in a CEQA challenge, the California Environmental Quality Act. Anybody bringing suit would have to disclose the identity of a person or entity that contributes in excess of $1,000 towards the plaintiff's costs of the action. This is really getting into the weeds, but here on the peninsula, if you all are, aware of what's going on, we do have a prominent environmental attorney that sues and tries to delay projects. And I think that this might be something that this bill might be something that the city would want to consider watching and maybe supporting, depending on how it plays out. Because these type of lawsuits have delayed good community development projects in our city and in our region. So that's one that I'm watching right now. And then I heard that today, Assembly Member Laura Friedman introduced AB 894. I haven't confirmed this yet. This is just something I saw on Twitter. So this bill would require public agencies to allow underutilized parking spaces to be shared among uses and to fulfill local parking requirements. The bill also requires that shared parking arrangements be considered when public funds are used for new development or parking lots. So it's kind of interesting that we just heard the presentation from Lacey. I don't know if this ties into that at all. Like I said, I just heard today that it was introduced, so I don't have any analysis to go on. But those are two that have caught my attention.
Yeah. One that had originally caught my attention in December when we talked about having this on the agenda and has since been approved was changes to the California solar net metering. So the net metering that we currently have was established in 1995 and is part of the incentive to install solar. So people who overproduce are currently basically can roll their meters backwards, which is what net metering means. And they have changed that. So anyone who installs solar in the future, but not those who already have installed solar, will not be basically rolling their meter backwards. It is, they're going to be paid less for the overproduction. So there are some concerns with that because it is going to harm primarily low income households that manage to install solar because they're not going to be paid as much. And the best way around that is to spend even more for battery backups, because then you're charging up your battery instead of sending your excess to the grid. Currently, solar users send extra back to the grid and then use it at night when the sun goes down. And that's not going to be available. So unfortunately, we don't have any control over this. This is something that has already passed and been approved by the California Public Utilities Commission. But it is something to pay attention to for future projects in Seaside, especially if there's anything that we can consider or just keep in mind when we're setting expectations for what kind of households might install solar or any rules that involve solar or battery backup. It's basically less of a savings now. And so if public projects like the Ascent project install solar, they're going to be after this cutoff, so they're going to be getting less for it. So nothing to be done about it, but just keep that in mind. Anyone else have any other observations? Thank you for your summary. It was nicely summarized. Any members of the public wishing to comment on this discussion item? All right, seeing nobody, let's go transition to a related topic. Our final business item is the discussion of solar on multifamily affordable housing, which is a program sponsored by the California Public Utilities Commission.
Thanks. So I want to bring this discussion back up. So I presented on this, I think it was back in September. Yeah, and I think the idea here, just to sort of discuss the program, answer any lingering questions that were on it. I can go through kind of the summary of benefits and responsibilities that I'd sent out, but just as a review, the solar on multifamily affordable housing, it provides financial incentives for installing photovoltaic energy systems on multifamily affordable units. And there are 2 eligible units that have been identified by the SOMA program here in Seaside, but there could be additional units that are eligible based on the breakdown of income within the unit. So for instance, if there's a unit that has 80% of tenants with 60% or lower of the area median income, that unit would be eligible for the program. And according to the SOMA program coordinator, and this may change with current regulations, but on average, the program leads to about $35 to $45 of savings per unit on the bills that go right back into the tenants pocket, so they're getting that back on as savings on their bill. So that's money that can go to stimulate local economy. The benefits to property owners are that they're the bill within public or common spaces can be brought down. And if a property owner is already thinking about installing solar, this program, the incentives within this program can bring down the cost 65 to 75%. And then just want to highlight a couple other benefits to the city. The program really includes a strong local workforce development component. So each project is required to hire and pay 1 or 2 job trainees, and they emphasize training local residents on solar technology. So I guess just wanted to open it up for discussion and then see about what the next steps might be to present this to the city for support and for outreach to property owners. SOMA program provides marketing assets and outreach materials that cities and legislators can use to conduct outreach to property owners, and then also to see about what the next steps might be on conducting research on other eligible properties that are within the city.
Just with the topic I just brought up, I wanted to share that this is a good program to support, because in this case, a property owner isn't actually seeing the benefits of reduced solar bills. So if we're talking about a multifamily residential property owner who is going to be given incentives to install, then that seems like the audience that needs incentivized, because they're not living there. They're not seeing their own bill go down, which is the primary incentive for single family installations. So if we're trying to get some of these multifamily dwelling areas to convert, then something like this is the way that they're essentially gonna, help to pay for it. Because normally you say, oh, homeowners, you can pay it off in X number of years because of reductions on your bill. And that's not the case for a property owner. So I think in terms of the electrification goals for our state and our knowledge on the Environmental Commission, that electrification helps our greenhouse gas goals. Clean energy from solar is going to help those goals. This is something that we should be supporting and trying to figure out how to get in front of the right eyes, because we already need to incentivize that group. I don't think the change in how much residents are saving on their power bill is going to matter for these owners. I mean, this is still hitting larger environmental goals as opposed to personal economic goals. So yes, I agree. We should try and, what the next step, I suppose, be to help share it with the city council?
Yeah, I guess I wanted a little guidance on that. I think that was what I had in mind to present this to city council, but yes.
I guess that kind of depends. If you have consensus of the group, then that means putting together a message that you want to share with the council. If you want to act somewhat independently from the group as a community member, then, you can go about it in various ways. Think about it a little bit more and talk to you to see what your preferred method is, and probably give you some suggestions after I put a little bit more thought into it. But we do have a council member here tonight who's listening to everything we're saying. So we might also get some guidance from that offline or online.
You have a comment as well?
Yeah, so when we talked about this back in September, in my notes, I had that we talked about maybe asking the Neighborhood Improvement Commission to help fund the property owners' upfront costs for installing. And that Emily was going to do a little more research and then maybe draft a correspondence that we could send on to city council. So with the additional information that she provided tonight, I am supportive of this, and I think we should send that message to council. And I don't know about how we go about asking another commission to allocate funds for this or how much that ask would be.
Laura, you look like you're about to say something.
Just thinking it over, I think my request would still be to receive a draft correspondence to review and edit as the commission would desire and then share. Whether that be shared immediately directly to city council or whether a presentation be made to the Neighborhood Improvement Commission, for example, as had already been discussed. We just need something to review together. So the request would be for a draft correspondence.
Indeed. Sounds good.
Otherwise, I would refer to Staff Liaison Rocha's comment that there is also the potential for you as an independent community member to perhaps work with the program. It sounds as though they have a lot of outreach type of materials and presumably staff that would be able to make a presentation about the program itself, and simply extend an invitation and coordinate time on city council agenda to be able to bring that to the council. That seems like a very reasonable approach to me as well. But as a commissioner, I would be happy to review and support any correspondence you would rather put forward from the commission itself.
Yeah, I'd also be interested in reviewing a draft to put our support forward to the city council, and I don't think there's any reason we can't do both simultaneously. See if that organization can get on the agenda for city council and also say that we support.
Great. Okay.
All right. Any members of the public wishing to comment on this topic? All right, since our audience has gotten smaller and seeing no one online raise their hand. That is the last business item that we had on our agenda for today. The next topic would be any reports from commissioners.
So I'm happy to report on the usual Habitat Subcommittee related items. I continue to support the pollinator garden habitat in public park workdays every Saturday from 10 to 12. The calendar of our park rotations is still available on the friendsofseasideparks.org website. And Friends of Seaside Parks is also intending to submit a grant application for Xerces plant kits again this year. That application period is opening, and I will support them with the planning around planting for the coming winter season, which is months ahead, but rapidly arriving. So I will be supporting FOSPA with that, as I also am continuing to support them with planning and analysis of potential new habitat sites as new parks have been added to FOSPA. And our Grizzly Corps fellow is poised to begin doing extensive community outreach on a weekly basis in coordination with the pollinator habitat workdays, where she will be distributing information to door through the neighborhood together with other volunteers about the program and other things associated with it, but certainly will be communicating with the public much more directly, much more actively about the pollinator habitat program. That's it.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for continuing to shepherd the work in our parks. Any other commissioners with anything to report at this time?
I have a report. So my emphasis is transportation, alternative modes of transport and reducing GHG. So I did a bus ride on December 21st with our new city council member, Rita Burks. We rode the bus through Seaside, her and her daughter. So that was a lot of fun. And then I just wanted to remind the community that students at MPC, Hartnell and CSUMB can ride for free with their student ID card. And then right now there's a discount on all MST buses. If you use the contactless fare payment system, you only pay 50 cents. So 50% off. So it's $1 to ride right now. And that's it.
Now, all the other things I wanted to report on are hopefully gonna have more to share next meeting. We had a little bit of a update over from the city that they were looking for new vendors for the farmers market. And since we heard from our staff liaison Beth that solicitation is gonna close on the 24th of this month. So hopefully by next month in March, we'll be able to find out more about potential farmers market situations. So I'll see if I can get that on the agenda. And anyone else at this time? I don't think we do public comment for commissioner reports. So any reports from staff?
Yeah, I'll be following up on everything that I said I would, and also very likely sending out a draft version of a RFP for climate action, potentially climate action and adaptation plan to get some feedback on the scope, as well as the community outreach specifications to be included.
Beth, can I give you one more request for peeking at in the for the future? We were talking about the business item B from Lacey Rock about our potential parks, and I recall that many years previously, we had been looking at like urban forests and things with some of the spaces that are already open in the city of Seaside. And I just wonder if that means that we already have a list of some plots of land that we had been talking about tree planting on that the city already owns.
Yeah, you're challenging my memory again. On that one, I think we were looking at existing park spaces, but also essentially right-of-way planting, so street trees.
Okay.
I do think just relative to what Lacey presented and still on that topic, as well as the work that's happening with the pollinator habitats. Parks Master Plan, I think, might be somewhat of the response or opportunity. There's going to be, I think, a couple of community meetings regarding that. So we'll keep in touch as to when those are going to happen, because I think that's going to be a critical time towards identifying things of that nature. Even expanding it to maybe something that wouldn't typically be thought of, but yet we've been discussing at like the park level in terms of like a food forest idea versus strictly we're going to be planting street trees, and in our parks, we're not going to plant trees taller than 25 feet tall so people don't get their views ruined, and seeing things from a very simple perspective versus, I would say, an evolved and responsive perspective to climate change at the same time. So hoping that the Parks Master Plan even list out, species more focused on the natives that will be planted, not just drought tolerant. And being really forward thinking in that document, but that is up to some of like local area experts to show up and inform it at that level. Otherwise, not to say that somebody from a different state or a different city doesn't know anything about what's happening here. There are specifics to what's here and as to what is valued and what truly the community wants to see. And that's always, I think, been a challenge, is that true community input. So as much as even you as community volunteers at this level can show up and also spread that word, even if you are talking to a neighbor, and maybe you bring your neighbor's thoughts with you if they can't attend. So start thinking about that. And yeah, there's a lot to be done. The Parks Master Plan contract was approved by council, so we'll be seeing more movement on that sooner than anything else, even things that we've been talking about for years now, so.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Are we as commissioners allowed to collect data from the public? So if we wanted to start to maybe get an idea of what folks may want to see as far as the topic of these open spaces. And could we conduct a survey during the Earth Day event on our table? Is that something that we can do as a commission?
Yeah, I'll have to check in to see if there's any rules around that versus if you were to on your own and not identifying yourself as such, right? Versus being at a city co-sponsored event and doing something along those lines. I think that would definitely be something that would need to be looked at a bit closer in terms of what was being asked before we would just say, yeah, go ahead, Environmental Commission, and collect data on whatever you think is important versus that being aligned with the goals of the council and other things that are moving forward. But I'll follow up on that. I have a few questions to ask the clerk about that as well.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you, everybody. We've reached the end of today's agenda, and I believe we don't take any comments from the public on reports from staff. So I am going to adjourn today's meeting. Our next regularly scheduled meeting is March 14th. At which point we'll have some fresh agenda items. We'll see if we need to re-vote on co-sponsoring the Seaside Earth Day celebration. And you should all be hearing from Beth through email about any updates on that come up in the meantime. So see you all March 14th.
Thank you.